good morning, folks. So we're going to do some artwork today. We're working on an adventure for the Eberron campaign setting using Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition 2024 rules. I'm illustrating the book. Give me a second here to check in on my signal to make sure that we're coming clear. I'll do some quick posts, and then we're going to get to work here for an hour or so, and then we'll be back tomorrow morning to do it again. So give me a second here. It sounds like the signal is coming through okay. I'm grabbing my social media link here for me to post online. Give me a hot second here, and I will regale you with my origin story while I click a bunch of social media buttons. So, hi, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing games, I illustrate them, and I publish them online. And I've been a DM since 1987. I've been a freelance illustrator since 1999, an Eberron enthusiast since 2004, and I've been creating content for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition on the DMsGuild since 2018, but I haven't done anything on DMsGuild for Eberron yet. So this adventure is both a thank you and love letter to the Eberron campaign, Keith Baker, and the Eberron community. Crystals Mabar, it's for characters levels 7 and 8. You're fighting necromancers, undead, and demons in the Carnwood of Carnath on the continent of Corvair. We are currently at episode 552 of creating the assets for this adventure. If you find today fun, like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications of when we're live in the future. Here's a stack of books that I've already created on the DMsGuild. They all have free previews, so you can check out all the artwork and design principles that I utilize in those adventures. If you think they're cool or add to your D&D campaign, consider picking them up to encourage similar behavior from me in the future. So let's see, this book cover, let's blip this out of the way. And we're currently working on the necrotic forest. So there we go. Okay, it looks like everything's lined up. I set my mouse aside to grab my stylus, my 9x12 Intuos pad by Wacom, and our Photoshop here, and we're going to continue diving into this. So we're making a necrotic forest. It's as you approach the as you enter the Carnwood and go into the forest, eventually you'll be able to follow tracks or the smell or NPCs guiding you. There's a number of different ways that you can get the characters to where they're supposed to be to help idiot-proof the adventure, to help keep them on the tracks that they need to be on until they plunge into the open sandbox of the Manifest Zone, to then collapse again into finding the underground facility where the necromancers are at, creating this unnatural Manifest Zone that your team is ultimately supposed to shut down and save the world from being consumed by the plane of Mabar. So as you draw closer to the forest, as you draw closer to the Manifest Zone, the forest begins to wilt and melt. Here's an earlier illustration of you in the Carnwood. This is earlier in the book. You can see that it's a forest. It's lush, but there's this haze that is starting to come through into the forest, and this is a reference image we used for color, just for color, and then as you get closer and approach the Manifest Zone, the forest starts to wilt and rot until once you actually get into the Manifest Zone, all the vegetation breaks down into basically a necrotic slurry that can disease and hamper your characters as they navigate through the space. So that's where we're at. We're making trees right now, guys. So I'm actually pretty happy with the forest for the trees, and so we want to start working on detail and environment and texture and groundwork. So I'm going to. Actually, what I want to do before we proceed further is collect these folders and make a duplicate of them. And then I want to merge these all down. And then I want to pluck it from the forest. And we're going to put it in front of the forest. I'm going to grab this color, this background haze greenishness that we have going on. We're going to highlight the forest. Oops, what? Wrong layer. There we go. And we're going to cover the forest with the same hazy green that we have, so we can add the forest back in over it and play with the opacity of the trees overall. See how we can do that? Now we can have them fade in. And if I were to say, let me grab a, I need to get my toolbox open here. Hold on. Did you bring your fucking tools? There we go. So if I were to draw a black blot against the sky, against the background, right? You can see here with the forest opacity, with that black stripe, you can see how the forest disappears, right? But if I have this background layer we just made, and then I haze out the forest, see, it doesn't interrupt the background. So now I can use that background color. So if I decide to then reduce the opacity on, say, this tree specifically, I can change its opacity without having the color behind it influence its overall color, right? So if I then get rid of that, you can see instead here, as I change the opacity, this just causes it to fade into the background. See how that works? So that's how we're using the tools that we have on hand. And this is the minimum that we have for the color that the background color that we picked. So you always be able to see at least a little bit of the forest, or a little bit of the trees in the forest. And then if we go up to full opacity, it's as dark as the foreground trees. So we'll take this back to 100%. There we go. And oops, I'm noticing I've got some cheap bits in here that I need to fix. So I'm going to actually, this is a little preemptive. I'm going to drop that away. We're going to open up the forest again. Let's drop away all of these spare assets, leaving us with this. Here we go, and grab that color again. I just need to fix these background trees, and then we'll get into the. I thought I had done this, but nope. I did work on this last night, obviously, as demonstrated. There's more trees here than last episode. Where is my? That was a hard no. There. Here. So we go back and fix these. Just do a little bit more cleanup here, and then we'll move on to the rest of the piece. So we shouldn't have any difficulty getting this taken care of today. So I do illustrations like this Monday through Fridays in the morning, and then I do game design on Mondays and Thursday nights. We'll continue with the bashing campaign mechanics tomorrow night, and then on Tuesday and Fridays at lunch, like yesterday, we work on not necessarily the same system. It depends on where we're at. So typically Tuesdays and Fridays is when I do Unearthed Arcana design and contemplation. So they recently released the apocalyptic classes, which implies a Dark Sun setting might be in the works, which would be awesome for us to have on DMsGuild to play with. I love Dark Sun. I absolutely love Dark Sun. I spent many years romping the deserts and killing stuff with abandon. Such a cool setting. So brutal. So yeah, tapering these wilting branches is as complicated as I need these very background trees to be. Very simple. I will thicken the trunks a bit. They're a little bit too. They should be a little bit thicker at the bottom than they are at the top, considering their conditions. So we'll sculpt them appropriately. But for now, all we need to do is worry about tapering these branches down. And see, it doesn't take very long for us to do that. Just draw a line and then an eraser and just taper it like that. Grab this branch with a select tool, drag it into frame, and wilt it down a little bit. There we go. So the process is to in creating supplements. So the reason I created the channel was twofold. One, because artwork and writing and game design is crushingly lonely work. It's all mental space and labor producing an end result, which is something that other people can view, enjoy, consume, etc. And these projects take hundreds or possibly thousands of hours to complete, depending on the scope of the project that you're working on. And to remain isolated all the time is unhealthy. I can't really have entertaining, how to put, I can't really be attending to people in the room around me while I'm sticking my nose into the monitor and pushing pixels for hundreds of hours. It's a very lonely task. YouTube, being able to stream work like this is actually an opportunity for me to connect with people that are interested in some more content like this. And thank you. And the light conversation that crops up in chat helps fuel imagination and stimulate conversation, and to be able to connect with people that are interested in this sort of material. So most people don't know what it takes to make role-playing supplements. Obviously with GPT now or whatever, you can just enter a prompt and it'll spit out some Drell for you. But if you don't know how the sausage is being made yourself, you don't really have the ability to discern good versus bad content. You have to consume the content to be able to get a discerning taste for what you consider to be good content. And folks that are dedicated to the game can recognize, garbage versus quality content. And I like to think that the amount of time that we invest in play testing and wrestling with the rules and refining them and going back and testing new options creates a level of quality that can be reliable. And then, of course, I provide 100% free preview to the books that I write, so that you can taste for yourself, is this good or not? And then if you like it, then folks tend to be honest. If they like something and people ask for money for the production of it, it's not unusual for people to be willing to chip in some coin to cover the cost of labor that goes into it. So in that sense, the channel helps demonstrate the creation process that goes into physically, human crafted work. Connect with people in the process of doing it. And it also creates a schedule for me to have a reliable, I know for a fact, the Monday through Fridays in the morning, I'm going to put in at least an hour or so into whatever piece it is that I'm working on, to be able to continue moving forward. And on Thursday nights, Monday nights, Thursday nights, Tuesday and Friday lunches, I'm putting time in to craft mechanics. And then I have a Discord channel that's linked down below that I do playtesting for on Saturday mornings. And depending on what it is that we're playtesting, I'll pick up new players that may end up being, fantastic people to have around that jive with you, and end up doing more playtesting and start to create a small team around what you're working on, and it's just building that sense of community. It's really exciting. So all of that together, again, basically the reason for the channel is to demonstrate the creation process, the ideation, the design work, the struggles of writing out the mechanics and wrestling through the mechanics of what it is that you're designing, to see if it's fun and if it's playable and if it's simple enough to be legitimate mechanics for people to consume. and then to actually be able to illustrate the book in the process as well, and all the cartography and the charts and the graphs that go with it, and the page layouts and the assembly work, and basically share all of those processes here on stream with folks for them just to be able to get a better sense of how do we, what does it take to build these things. So since I'm capable of doing every step in the process, not necessarily that I will, like I like to hire an editor to have a second opinion on how things are laid out and organized, and the way that I'm explaining things. A good editor will be able to push back. It's like, this is bad, this should change. Lean into this format more, this is good, blah, blah, blah. You need that external input, and it's more than just asking, hey Reddit, does this look good? It's getting an opinion that you're paying to tell you you're wrong, because you're willing to put in the work to rebuild what you did, because reasons A, B, and C. This is why it's wrong. X, Y, Z. If you can, the concept is cool, but you need to fix GHI for this to be able to proceed smoothly. Or if you change C, D, E, then we can make A, B, and C make so much more sense. And all in the alphabet analogy, but that's the process. You if you get free input from like social media, like this is my complaint on UA. Ultima, the Unearthed Arcanas is not playtest content, it's marketing content. This is stuff that they're already either planning to move forward with and they're refining it or including us in, or they're testing the waters to see how much hype and interest there is behind a specific concept, like Dark Sun subclasses, for instance. If no one gave a shit about it, they may or may not question how much they want to lean into it. But if the UA is super popular, they'll know this is where they need to invest their time. They may have already decided they're going to make a Dark Sun book. We don't honestly know. We'll see stuff like the Strixhaven subclasses, for instance. That was a book that was going to happen. But when they created the subclasses, there was a lot of pushback and complications on how they had built it. So ultimately, they ditched them and went with a different concept altogether. And we haven't seen Strix classing since. So like that was an example of apparently an experiment in their eyes that failed, which is a real bloody shame, because having subclasses that can be used by multiple classes is effectively the 5th edition version of prestige classes. And prestige classes, it was a 3rd edition concept where if you met these qualifications, you could take instead of being a fighter level 1 to 20, if you take this chain of feats and have these ability scores or these skills at level 6, instead of continuing as a fighter, you could change the theme of your class completely. So I'm not going to take more fighter levels. Instead, I'm going to take gladiator levels. And so after 10 levels, I'll be level 6 as a fighter, 10 as a gladiator, and have this complete separate chain of abilities. Like, I won't be gaining an additional action surge, but like I have unlimited brutality or whatever. Like different ways to modify the resources and features that your class would get. And to be a gladiator, maybe a rogue could end up being a gladiator by level 9, because it has different a rogue can get to different requirements slower than a fighter could for a fighter prestige class. But like a brute could, or like a thug could be a step between a fighter and a rogue, and maybe a rogue could get the qualifications to be a thug by, say, level 4, but it would take level 6 for a fighter to get there. And at that point, both the fighter and the rogue could both become a thug, but their classes will look a little bit different. But at the end of that 14 level or 16 level progression, they're going to be more thug than they were fighter or rogue. So they're going to end up looking more like a thug than they would a thuggish fighter or a thuggish rogue, if that makes sense. So that's what prestige classes in 3rd edition was. And so you can see how the Strix classing idea of like anybody can take this Witherbloom subclass, and that makes you like a quote unquote iconic Witherbloom character, whether you're a druid or a wizard or a bard or a warlock. All of these casting classes could take these college subclasses and thus become a Witherbloom character with this subclass that had like four features. And when it was time for you to gain a subclass feature from your wizard, you would gain the same subclass feature that the bard would get, that the cleric would get, that the druid would get. But they ran into trouble because their 5e scaffolding is inconsistent. It's not a mechanically smooth system where all subclasses gain where all classes gain subclass features at the same levels. Like the general level where you gain subclass features in 5e24 is 3, 6, 10, 14. There's like 5 classes that gain subclass features at those levels. So like those are obvious subclass level benchmarks that you could build a Strixhaven class around. But during the 5e24 game design, they didn't take that evolutionary step of consolidating and standardizing when classes gain subclass features. Probably for backward compatibility issues, I think it hampered their overall game design options. Like it limited the scope of what 5e can be by saddling themselves or shackling themselves with mechanical decisions from the prior edition. I imagine that was not. I don't think that was a game design decision. I bet that was a marketing decision to make things easier and less effort and a corporate decision to not need as much playtesting and designers if they kept the old scaffolding and just basically updated it as opposed to like quote unquote reinventing it. We've seen a lot of layoffs from Wizards of the Coast and a lot of shedding of staff. So that kind of gives some credence to the idea of them wanting to reduce their footprint on the number of designers that were necessary for them to keep the game system up and running, because it doesn't make money like Magic the Gathering can. It's a completely different business format. I'm going to hit save real quick. Something just jittered on me. Since it's a different game system, since it's a different type of game, it doesn't have the same profit potential that a collectible card game has. And I think that's hamstringed the innovation that's coming out of 5e from Wizards, which is a shame because they invented 5e. It would be nice if they could remain the cutting edge of game design principalities, but they aren't. They've deferred innovation to third-party content creators like myself or other people that are far more successful on YouTube than I am. But it's stifled. If you aren't lead in design and innovation, you aren't the lead in culture involving the thing that you're developing. So Wizards is losing authority every time they release another a book from a different company on D&D Beyond. It says here's options for how you can play our game that we haven't supported yet. They're basically telling us look to somebody else to support different ideas. We're just stewarding, as it were, the game system. They're eliminating themselves as an authority. And I don't know if that's going to end up biting them in the ass or not, but it feels like it doesn't feel like a strong business decision. For all the business decisions that they've allowed to guide the production and evolution of Dungeons and Dragons in general, it's amazing that they aren't looking at the creative aspect of the business model, where remaining relevant in the conversation is largely about leading from the front. And currently, all we've seen is Wizards leading from the rear. Since 5e exploded in popularity, they've been, I think, overly cautious and whether they think they're alienating their audience through innovation or not. When obviously with Draw Steel and Daggerheart and Shadow Dark as lead examples, the audience craves innovation. It's D&D, or role-playing communities in general, are creative people. They're theater kids, they're artists, they're songwriters, they're poets, they're crafters, they're cosplayers. We crave creativity, and creative design is what excites and innovates that community. And when you are deferring creativity and innovation to a third party, you're actively saying we're stepping down from being the authority in this venue and deferring that leadership to somebody else that has more innovative design ideas. Like Free League having the One Ring conversion to 5e has released the tension on Wizards of the Coast creating a more robust gritty realism system, or developing a more robust exploration system for 5e, because Free League has leaned into that space with the relatively low magic setting of Tolkien. So now the hunger for that more gritty exploration, low magic setting has been the pressure has been released. So Wizards doesn't have to concern themselves as much whether it exists or not. Effectively, the audience is being quelled. And it looks like my music stopped, so I'm going to have to see if I can get that up and running manually. But yeah, these are some of the thoughts that I have about D&D in general, and I like sharing them with whoever likes to listen. A momentary. You know what? Trim that down. See, we're on the last tree. Barely took any time at all for us to get here. I'm hoping we're gonna have we'll have this close to finished inside November. I would very much like to have this published before the new year. But I won't know until we get there. There we go. Okay, so that's better forest for trees. Okay, so everybody looks good. We're back to where we should have been at the beginning of the episode, and we only lost we lost 20 minutes in the process, so not bad. Let's see. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the original step of creating that background. Duplicate these layers, merge these layers. Nope, did it again. There we now that we have that set up, we can work on fading the forest. And these will probably drop down to that 25%. See how that fades into the background? That gives us that sense of haze. So that's 25%, and this is 100%. There's 1, 2. These are both roughly the same. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70. Maybe 25, 32, 39, 40, 46, 53, 60, 67, 74, 81, 88. Okay, so that's too much. 25. I'm doing math to see if I have 9 layers, how can I parse them out percentage-wise to go from 25 to 100% smoothly, to have a transition through the mist of more saturation as you get closer to the camera. So in degrees of 70, okay, so 75 divided by 9 equals 8. 8, 72. There we go. So the answer was 8 all along. So 25, and then this will be 33. We're going to try skill shotting this. Ha! Look at that! I hit 33%. Oh my god. Okay, so let's go for 41. There we go, 41. And then we want 49. About here. I was a little off. 49. And then 57. And then 65. And then 73. And then 81. Come on, Drive Turkey. 81. Can't hit my mark. And then we'll go to 90 on this one. There you go. So there is our fade at 8% increments. That looks about right. So I think I'm pretty happy with that. So we're gonna go. We'll go 100, and then 90. 1. Somehow I switched to 9. 73. I'll allow it. 73. 65. I'm labeling these as their percentages so I can come back and reference this later in case I have to adjust something. 57. 49. 41. 33. 25. So those, now we have our now we have the percentages that we want for each tree along the way. We can go back in and start messing around with texture. So let's see, what do I want to do first? I think I want to work on the foreground. Here's that tree, this tree is behind. this forward. Merge down. Nothing. Okay, cool. Get rid of that. Yeah, we're going to start working on. So the necrotic nature of the environment is going to prevent any significant bushes from remaining, but there will be twigs and ground scrub that remains. So now that we have the trees in place, we can start adding scraggle. So these three in the foreground here, I'm going to cluster these together into a unit. And then take, very foreground, and they're going to have mid-ground, which is basically, here's mid-ground, and we're going to have layered backgrounds. Drop that, there's a tree, there's a tree, there's a tree, so we're going to drop these into near background, and then these will shift into further ground. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm sussing layers at the moment. There. Okay, this is making sense. Hey, Steve, it's good to see you. Welcome back, my bro. I like these fades. Okay, so yeah, let's work on ground scraggle. Here's our foreground. Here's our midground. So between the foreground and the midground, we want to add in an extra layer. I'm going to grab the same green that we've been using. Let's get this out of the way. So I'm going to, I'm layering in these vestigial shrubbery that have all but died. And then once we have those in place, along with the trees, we can start adding in like little puddles of slurry to add more interest along the ground. These little bits in. Maybe like that. What's going on? Yeah, we need a shrubbery. you know what the score is, buddy. Yeah, the Knights Who Say Knee are just necromancers the entire time. Did my thing stop again? Sure did. I don't know why you're not jiving with me, buddy, but I'm going to just reboot the whole thing. See if I can get up and running. Just let it die. I don't have anything to I've got to bend and wilt these things a lot. I don't want them being too proud. Let's stump them. I need to do a lot of them, just enough to get the flavor across. Having said that, I'm going to do maybe 10 or 11 of these. We'll see if I can cram 10 or 11 in for the space that we have available. Not here in the foreground. We're going to start layering them back further and further around the trees. This back half of the book, all these appendices. There's 3 appendices. There's the creature, the NPC monsters and NPCs. There's items and oddities, which has the different plants, conditions, effects, and magic items that appear in the adventure. And then we have the alternate plot hooks and an adventure design, which is like a toolbox for the DM to modify the adventure. And yeah, there's a pretty. I don't like how this tree is messing around. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to live with it. All right, trust the process. The process is good. We'll leave that like that. Go. Let's grab this as a separate layer and start adding in some. Drop the size of the brush a little bit. We'll start off with a brush like that, and then we'll kill it. Sorry, buddy. All that lives is born to die. It's like Psalms. It's all so depressing. Yeah, we'll dot in these rotten shrubbage, and then we'll start working on the actual rotten ground where all of this decay is dripping to. Like that, that. What's up? Hey, Neil. It's not October. That forest is way too spooky. You know, you gotta love necrosis, right? Welcome to the mix, Neil. Glad to have you here, man. Yeah, I do. This is particularly pixel line worky, but I do a lot of Bob Ross style painting. Here's the forest that I had painted earlier. This is further away from the necrosis. The plane of Mabar, the manifest zone in the forest, causes rot that then radiates out from the zone, spreading with the wind. This necrotic breeze that once it settles, it starts to rot plant life around it and slowly expands with the wind. And so this here is further away, more towards the village where the characters start the adventure. As you move further into the forest, you start encountering this hazy, greenish, sickly mist, and then once you get along the edge of the manifest zone, this is what the forest turns into. And then once you're actually inside the manifest zone, it's just sludge. And from that sludge, unnatural plants unnatural plants grow, and the manifest zone where this is taking place in also happens to be a mass burial site of unmarked graves. So as necrotic energy seeps into the soil, it animates the dead that are buried there, and they claw their way to the surface, form little squads of undead terrors that then roam out of the manifest zone into the forest towards the villages, creating, undead mobs attacking characters and NPCs and shit. So that's some of the process that goes into it. But yeah, all the environmental and landscape work and stuff, I use Bob Ross techniques in Photoshop. I spent 2017, I want to say all of 2017 and some of 2018, learning how to paint like Bob Ross in Photoshop so that I can improve the quality of my landscape or environmental art in the D&D illustrations that I was being commissioned to do. And it's gotten to a point where my environments have far exceeded quality of practically anything else that I do. So I'm reverse engineering up. We've been working with architecture, with buildings and stuff, and I'm trying to integrate Bob Ross techniques into the architectural illustrations that I do. And the next book that we're going to do, the Bastion campaign setting, the Bastion campaign mechanics for D&D, that's going to be a bunch of structures and industrial environments that hopefully will drive me into further developing techniques to be able to create swift architecture that feels and looks good, similar to how Bob was able to innovate landscape design with his wet-on-wet techniques. So I'm hoping that my muse will point me in a direction that will allow me to do the same for architecture. It's yet to be seen, but the pressure hasn't been applied yet to produce. So once we get into that state of actually doing production for that sort of art, hopefully we're going to start innovating and seeing results for that. Gotta make sure to pack some rebreathers in that. Yeah, actually, there's this there's one of the plants, one of the moss that grows inside the manifest zone. If you use alchemistry or a poisoner's kit or cooking tools even, or a medicine kit as a short rest, during a short rest or as an hour, you can convert the moss into this potpourri that if you shove into a mask, you can breathe through it, and it reduces, it mitigates the necrotic effects of the environment. It's like a Constitution save, I think like DC 13. If you don't have something that protects you from the necrotic mists while you're walking through it, you get a degree of exhaustion. And it will eventually kill you if you wander inside the manifest zone long enough unprotected and keep failing your saves. It will literally exhaust you to death. So a lot of the the NPC soldiers that are operating inside the Manifest Zone, fighting undead already, have this, we call it this melange, this melange that you can breathe in. So if you run across guards, they're going to have this potpourri in these little apocalypse masks that they're wearing. So, but yeah, you're absolutely right. That is 100%. Yeah, it's like a breathalyzer. There's a mushroom that grows in here that if you similarly treat it, they're called nightcaps. If you use alchemy or medicine tools or poisoner kit, you can convert them into this thick resin that if you wipe it on your eye, it gives you dark vision for an hour. So like there's some fun harvestable materials inside the Manifest Zone that have actual value to the characters in and out of the adventure, which is one of the themes of this adventure, is that the whole reason this Manifest Zone is being artificially created through a ritual, and the reason that's happening, the reason it's happening is because the necromancers that are performing the ritual recognize the profit value of these exotic materials that will spawn inside the Manifest Zone if you can maintain it. So they have this artifact that they stole that allows them to create an artificial Manifest Zone that they're now basically exploiting for profit to extract these alchemical materials that they can sell, or like the ground itself. If the necrotic slurry, if it dries, it turns into these crystals that if you powder them, you can use them as material components for necromancy and darkness rituals. And basically a 5 foot space occupied by these crystals, when treated, are worth 10 gold. So every 5 feet of ground that you harvest dry and then crystallize through alchemy is basically worth 10 gold. So if you got like you have like a 15 by 15 space, a 3 by 3 block, that's 90 gold. And the thing is 5 miles, a 5 mile area that has become this Manifest Zone. So there's literally millions of gold worth of value, literally just on the ground, that you have to scrape up and process. So if they can keep the operation going, they can literally rake in cash. And therein is the problem, because the process of this creates undead that then go out and attack people, and it becomes a larger and larger problem. So they recruited this retired Karnath military squad called Red Wolves. Their role in the last war, working in the Karnath army, since Karnath was since they fueled their soldiers by raising them to be zombies and skeletons to continue fighting, because they had a population issue in the middle of the war, so they had to turn to necromancy to continue providing troops in the army. So they needed to have a lot of necromancers to command them. And occasionally, as we know in the rules of D&D, if you aren't careful, those undead will break free of control and will become menaces. So there was like military police squads in Karnath. This is my headcanon. It's not official, but in my headcanon, there were like military police squads that were specialized in wrangling and containing undead threats. Like if you're going to raise a bunch of dead troops on the battlefield, you need to be able to wrangle them so they don't just often attack your troops. You need to be able to funnel them in the right direction, whether a necromancer is directly controlling them at the time or not. So these Red Wolf mercenaries are specialized in containing and wrangling undead. So with the last war having ended, the military doesn't really need that skill anymore. So these specialized military police got a mercenary gig working for what they think is a legitimate military operation, just kind of like, off the books sort of thing, which happens. a reputable military commander who happens to be a necromancer, part of the Emerald Claw, now decommissioned and unknown to the Red Wolf mercenaries, disgraced. He hires them to do this gig, so they bring in 100 troops to help minimize the risk to undead, but they didn't know about all the unmarked graves. So there's a lot more undead that are rising from the earth and venturing forth from the Manifest Zone, literally just following the wind, which is leading them to farming communities that have cropped up along the southern edge of the Carnwood, where there's, wheat, barley, and different types of grains that they're growing to help repopulate the nation of Karnath. They're being attacked by these undead threats, and it's beyond the Red Wolves are struggling to contain the threat, and so once the characters arrive, depending on how they interact with the mercenaries, is going to affect, are these guys going to be allies, or are they going to be antagonists against the characters trying to figure out what's going on? And if the characters, if the players decide, they can start sympathizing with, like, the soldiers and the characters can sympathize with each other and end up working with each other to shut down the necromancer operations. And that sets the characters up to be able to take governorship of the region and basically become the authority figures in the area, sanctioned by Karnath military. Because the default, there's 6 different plot hooks that characters can use to be in the adventure, and the default plot hook is people are going missing and people are getting scared. It looks like there's monsters in the forest. We need help. Please send help. And they're like, we told you that the Carnwood is haunted and that it was dangerous, and you ignored us and you set up new farming communities around it anyway. This was just a matter of time, but you're complaining a lot, so we'll send somebody. So your characters are commissioned or deputized to investigate and given the legal authority and badges to ask questions and crack skulls if necessary. And so when you get in, you start asking questions, and that leads to cracking skulls. And if you do well, the Bastion, the fortress that deputized you, is like, yeah, you did a great job. If you want, you can stay on as deputies. We'll actually promote you to sheriffs, and your new designation will be to oversee the Carnwood, to make sure that undead threats don't arise, and we'll give you a stipend to be able to pay troops to support you, and you can make a campaign around protecting the Carnwood from undead threats and necromancers. So that's like one of the directions that you can go with in the story. And at the tail end here, we're looking at alternate plot hooks, like if Ader Academy hires you to gather information about what's happening inside the Manifest Zone. Here's some of the things that Ader Academy will give your characters. This is one of the alternate plot hooks. It's like you can gain D4 magic items of uncommon rarity, which isn't a big deal, but you're only like 8th, 9th level at this point when you complete the adventure. So that's significant enough for you to be able to get some doodads that you guys have been looking for. Open books is arcane spell scrolls. Like that's a lot of Mai Tai. Up to 3rd level, you can get 2d6 spells up to 3rd level. Tenure, unlimited access to research libraries on campus. So now Ader Academy becomes a resource that you can send your arcane characters to collect more spells. And then resources, 3d4 times 5,000 gold pieces worth of goods and services, like research, alchemistry, other potential magic items, like uncommon magic items are worth 400 gold each. Like you could cash out that 3d4 times 5,000 gold pieces to get a ton of potions or other type of magic items. So it's a lot of, like, for 9th level, that's a decent haul. It's worth going on the adventure to gather these resources. So, and plus whatever else it is that you actually get inside of the adventure, because there's a lot of stuff that you can acquire inside the adventure as well. So it's really I built the adventure to basically set you up to have resources and become an authority figure in the Karnath government, or rather at least in the Carnwood, in that outlying area. It won't have much repute amongst nobility back in what is it? Reckon. Fuck, I forget the name of the capital, but regardless. There's six. There's the default plot hook where you're deputized, and then there's 5 alternate plot hooks that you are not deputized, but you're given a mission to go in and fuck around and find out what's going on in general, depending on who's funding you. And you can, and then we provide guidance in this appendix about like how to mix and match those together. Like you could be deputized to go investigate this, and Ader Academy is requesting that you bring back evidence about what's happening inside the Manifest Zone. Those two things like synergize well together. The Gatekeepers and the Silver Flame Church both know this exists and they want to shut it down before it causes trouble. Those plot hooks synergize with each other. The deputized plot hook could encounter the Gatekeepers, and the Gatekeepers know there's a rogue manifest zone that shouldn't be here. It's out of alignment with what the planes are supposed to be doing in orbit. So this is a profane occurrence in the to that druidic sect. So they want to shut it down with extreme prejudice. So I think that's enough. I think that's enough random stuff laying around in the forest for us to be able to work with. So I'm gonna drop the opacity of those. I'm gonna drop the opacity of these a bit, just to fade them into the environment. And then this here in the foreground, we're gonna fade these a bit as well. There. See, now they start to sink in a little bit better. By dropping the opacity, it pushes them further back into the haze. I'm going to drop these a little bit more. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Okay, so that's where we're at right now. I know I'm going to want to put texture on this tree, this tree, this tree, this tree, this tree, and this tree. A lot of resolution, a lot of detail here and here, less detail here and here, even less detail here and here, and then from there, the trees that are further back, we can generally just leave as they stand right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these trees need texture. And then these are just stumps that are going into the ground, like you can see here. The next step, after we add in the texture for these trees, the next thing we'll do after that is, hold on real quick. I see. Good point. Hold on real quick. Let's grab that color there real quick. I'm going to duplicate these layers, and then we're going to merge them. Them as well with the same background color. Merge that down. Better. Okay. Sorry, a little technical detail I had to work out there. Let's see. That feels good. Sorry, futzing around a little bit here. Had to futz. Okay, great. So we know our next step, and our next step is to texture these foreground trees. So that's what I threatened to be doing yesterday. So pitter patter, let's get at her. Here is our actual tree. Let's grab our reference. Actually, I'm gonna grab that color. I'm gonna nudge it a little bit. So here's how we do bark texture. This brush set is on my Patreon, which is linked down below. I grabbed this mountain chisel brush, which looks like this. This is the shape that it does. I use this for making Bob Ross paintings for mountain ranges. That's roughly how the tool works. But it also works for bark. So if I go here and I narrow it down, so it becomes a razor's edge like this, just a pin. See that technique there? You can see that same technique here, creating this. This is a low resolution, so it doesn't have the level of detail that it should. I just grabbed this off of a screenshot somewhere. Not the full illustration, but you can see this gritty texture on this bark. This technique I just demonstrated, that's how I created that effect, like this. So we're going to take that technique and we're going to come over here to this tree. We're going to drop down the size. I'm going to make the pin a little bit, I'm going to make it a little bit wider so it has a little bit more tooth. See how that works? And then I can use the same brush. And then I can invert it so it's upside down to erase and create these little marks. See how that goes? Now I can just traipse up the line. Then we can flip it over, and on the other side, and then we can shape and sculpt it depending on what the branches are doing. But initially, I just want to cover the cylinder. That's how we do bark. That's the opening step, and then we're going to whittle it down to create more contrast in the texture, and we'll carve out space for like where the branches is at. Like here, we want to carve in this space here to accommodate this branch, and then we want to just dot and chop at it a little bit. I'm just gonna stipple chop using my eraser tool here, just to cleave out chunks of it. We got this branch here. Like this branch is moving towards the camera, so we want to cleave away at that. This one is towards the camera, but this one is away from the camera, so I don't want to break the edge of that bark to retain, because the curve of the tree is helping dictate whether something is foreground or receding into the background, right? So how many of these scenes are you making? A lot. I've still got at least I think I've got at least another dozen or so illustrations just for this this is the Ader Academy plot hook that we're working through right now. This is one of the illustrations that we did, Ader Academy, and this took 2 weeks of morning streaming like this, maybe 3 weeks to get done. I'm pretty happy with the results. Oh yeah, and the book uses a 16:9 format. So if you're using, it's a PDF document that is published. So, and it doesn't quite. Photoshop has issues with matching things up in the size manually like that. But there you go. That's roughly a match. This is how it would appear if you actually like had this like on your device. It's a 12-point font. You can, depending on what kind of device you're using, you can probably read this text as is. But each of these columns is also a 16:9 format. So if when this publishes, you can turn it and then you'll be able to read each column individually. And so this is one of the plot hooks that we have. So this is just concluding the adventure. You become an ally for Ader Academy. And then here we're looking at on this page. And then here's this is one of the illustrations that I'm working on off screen. I still need to do more work on this, obviously. This is Professor Carter, who is your hook, who is your quest giver if you're using Ader Academy. And then over here, I only have Juliet and Armand illustrated currently. But once we finish this landscape that we're working on right now, we're going to be doing character sketches for, we'll replace these stand-ins. We'll make an illustration for Lewis and Elman and Rio and Saida. We'll swap all these guys out for new illustrations, and we'll do that on stream next once we finish this landscape that we're working on. And once we get this page done, then we'll move on to the next plot hook. So we'll have 2 more plot hooks to finish after this one. Actually, one of the plot hooks is done already. I forgot. So we only have one more. We have 2 more plot hooks after this one to complete. The Silver Flame and the Gatekeeper Druids. We need to do similar illustrations in a similar plot hook format for those as well. And once we get those done, we're running really thin on stuff that we need to do. We have like maybe 15 more illustrations like this in general that we need to complete, I think, for the adventure in general. And then we have a bunch of like little small incidental stuff. Like we have a gap here between this illustration and this one, so I'm going to have some texturing. This frame that we built, I'm messing around off screen in my downtime when I'm away from the camera. I'm messing around with a texture background to not get in the way of the text, but to help blend into the frame with the illustrations that we're doing. That's a work in progress, and I have a day job. So I have a 9-to-5 job that I work at, and I do all this as a side hustle. So I'm about 2 minutes away from having to end my stream for the day so that I can go to my day job. So I'll come back and I'll be working on this tomorrow morning. And Friday morning. So Monday through Friday in the mornings, we do illustrations like this. And then on Tuesday and Friday at lunchtime, I remote work. So on Tuesdays and Fridays at lunch, I have the bandwidth for me to jump on for an hour and work on game design. We're going through the Unearthed Arcana and converting the Unearthed Arcana options that were released for D&D. We're converting those into the spell point system that I like to use in my games. And on Mondays and Thursday nights in the evening, I have an extended stream that we do like 2 or 3 hours worth of game design. and that would be we're developing a skill-based system for bastions, which is the new hideout lair domain idea that Wizards put out in the DMG 2024. We're diving deep into that concept to make it an ability check, like skill challenge sort of game to like, you know, gamify it. If you know what, if you're a 5e enthusiast, 5e24 enthusiast, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you're just here for the art, then I'm probably just speaking gibberish right now. But the short answer to the question is, I'm not sure how many more landscapes we're going to do, because I don't know what the illustrations need to be in the other books yet. But we've got another 15 or so of these that we need to do, and I'm hoping that it'll be finished. I'm hoping it'll be finished in November. That might be optimistic. That's the dream. Drop that in, and then we'll come back to our eraser here, and then erase out some of these clumps. And once we finish this, book, we're just going to pick up the next one, and I illustrate Monday through Fridays in the morning. It's my guaranteed art time. If I was between books and I didn't have anything to illustrate at the moment, I would do commissions or other. I mean, all my pet projects become books. So I mean, sure, but I could do character art or whatever. Sometimes I have freedom and take. Very rarely will I take a commission. But generally, I like to do landscapes. I love doing Bob Ross style artwork in D&D. In fact, there's a future there where I have dedicated time doing fantasy landscapes all the time as a potential underlying. Tomorrow, we're going to continue working on texturing, and once we're done with the texturing on the trees, we're going to start adding details and texturing to the ground and the scrubbery that's on the ground, and start making, lean into this a little bit. We might be done with this. We might be done with this by Friday, maybe on Monday. It's collapsing quickly, and then we're going to switch to doing the lab assistants, the character art for all the lab assistants, and meanwhile, on the back end, I'm working on Professor Carter. I might end up doing some of Professor Carter artwork in the morning, but we'll be shifting off and working on the next hooks from there. So I don't know exactly what it is we're going to do next. I don't have these all plotted out necessarily. A lot of it's just intuitive and what feels right, what my muse wants me to do, whatever she feels would look cool. But we're always working on something new. Sometimes people are interested in what we're working on, sometimes we're not. Same thing with the game design. You might not be interested in Bastion mechanics, but you might be interested in Dark Sun, you know? Who knows? Anyway, that's it. Everdraw sci-fi? Not currently. I'm a D&D enthusiast, so I mainly work in fantasy and off-brand fantasy stuff. But I'm a big Spelljammer enthusiast, which is wild space, which is like fantasy space, but it's not. I don't do. Yeah, I don't have any projects that I'm working on currently that are sci-fi in nature. So, nothing. I don't anticipate doing anything specifically sci-fi anytime in the near future. Maybe a couple years from now, I might get into doing sci-fi stuff, but I'm looking at the next 20 some odd years of what will I be doing with this. And D&D is my favorite role-playing game. I've been playing since I was 12, back in '87. 38 years under my belt of DMing and playing D&D. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. So, yeah, there we go. That's me. Hey, all right, so that's it for the day. I'll be back tomorrow morning, and then I'll be back tomorrow night to work on Bastions. And then Friday morning we'll be back, and Friday at lunch we'll be working on the Sorcerer King Warlock patron, and from the Unearthed Arcana. And Saturday we do playtesting on my Discord channel, which is linked down below. And then Monday we'll be back again to do this, and then Monday night we'll be working on the Bastion campaign mechanics some more, and then we'll just keep rolling through the week. And we just rolled through 52 weeks a year doing this stuff until a book gets done and we publish it, and then whatever's on our workbench, we bring that forward, and that becomes our primary project, and we work on that while we develop other books, and we roll out book after book after book after book, and we just keep building. So we'll see what the future holds, but this is what I anticipate doing for the next 2 years, this type of stuff. So we'll see what shifts in the future. Who knows? But that's it for now, guys. I'll see you on the other side, and thanks a lot for hanging out. Like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. See you on the other side. Cheers.